great set. That was a lot of fun to watch. That was super duper fun to watch. Woo! All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get Melody and Angel in a call really quick, and let's see if we can talk to them about what happened. All right, we can hear y'all.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you guys. How's it going?
Good. Good.
Good. First off, I want to say, Angel and Melody, thank you guys for putting this on relatively short notice. You guys are awesome, and this stuff's like always like a very like tense thing to set up because I want everything to go well and everything needs to be like set up properly. But you guys were both very, very nice, so thank you guys so much. Turn them up. Indeed, I will. How was that? All right.
How am I?
All right, I think that's better.
Testing.
Testing. How is that, guys? Is the guy better?
I...
All right, sweet. Wonderful. All right, they can hear you. All right, so...
Melody's the nicest.
Melody is the nicest? You guys are both very nice. You guys were very nice to me and very, very easy to work with, so thank you for that. All right, just real quick. Angel, first off, just let them know a little bit about you, like who you are. Let's do a name, your fighting game, your first fighting game, and give me a fighting game track that you really like.
So Angel is how I like to be called. My first fighting game. There are technically two.
Okay.
The first fighting game I ever played was Scarlet Weather Rhapsody, or Toho 10.3.
Wow.
That was the first fighting game I ever played. Because I was in high school and that was Toho, and my friends played fighters, so I wanted to play one, but I was a nerd, so I wanted to play a nerdy fighting game.
Understandable.
But then I kind of dropped off. I bought a stick. I played a little bit. I dabbled in Unial. I dabbled in Skullgirls. I dabbled in Street Fighter on whatever GGPO was back then. But when I came back in 2016 and I was like, I want to actually play fighting games, I picked up Hisoten Soku, which is actually the expansion pack to Scarlet Weather Rhapsody, Toho 12.3. And I played that to a pretty decent level for about a year. And ST Unist came out, and I watched the Otaku, and I saw Squish versus Isaac. Squish versus, I can't believe I just called him that. Squish versus Infinity. Please don't let Infinity. Please don't clip that. Squish versus Infinity, and I was kind of amazed at the game, and I picked the game up.
Yeah, I know exactly what set you're talking about, and I still rewatch that set from time to time. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I transitioned into Unist, and I played Unist throughout its competitive life cycle. I never placed particularly well outside of locals, but I think I was one of the people who really furthered how good Hilda was as a character over the last 3 years. That's what I like to think, at least.
Okay. No, that's great. I want to go back to that last thing that you said, but first, give me a track.
Gordo's theme.
I just put that on. All right, thank you. Where's Fox, by the way? If you're in the chat, I told you so. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, Gore theme is my lucky theme, actually.
Gore theme is so good. It's so good. All right, thank you. I'll get back to that in a second. Melody, please introduce yourself. Tell me what the first fighting game that you played, and give me an awesome track that you really like.
The first fighting game I actually played was BlazBlue because a cousin of mine really wanted to get me in a fighting game, so he just kept force buying me games on Steam. And he bought that and Skullgirls because that game is and will always be cheaper than a bag of dirt, so please try it. And
okay, you're right. Before ACR was cheaper than dirt, there was Skullgirls.
So he just wanted somebody to bully with grapplers, but after that, I actually enjoyed BlazBlue and just so happy to play Unist. And this is actually my favorite fighting game. I think I've logged nearly 2,000 hours in this game.
That's insane.
So I'm still a huge fan of this one.
That's insane. Wow.
And shoot for tracks.
Yeah, give me a track. Give me a track. I love fighting game music, so this is a big deal.
My favorite track of all time is Kyo's Tears from King of Fighters.
Woo! We were actually just talking about me and my friends were just talking about KOF music because of the Maiden-kun drop, and yeah, we were like, give me favorite Kyo track. Tears is incredible. It's such a good song. I love it.
We don't deserve the King of Fighters soundtrack.
Oh, it's so good. Everything from like 94 to 2000 is just pure gold. Pure gold. Not to say that Under Night isn't. Under Night is gold front to back. I love this track so much. Anyway, so I want to go back to Angel really quick. You said something about furthering the quality or how good people thought Hilda was. Would you mind or going into further detail on what you mean by that?
So at the start of ST and the end of VL, Hilda was kind of like a character people got annoyed at the low and mid levels, but at the high level didn't really get a lot done because of her very like particular flaws. But there are a lot of unique interactions and little bits here and there in ST that when you put together as Hilda, you actually ended up with in my opinion, a very, very good character, even for ST. I think the big noticeable one that people probably gathered like at the start was she has good matchups against the ST top tiers, for example. But she was really this like gimmick character who had zoning, didn't do a lot of damage, had a mix-up, but no one really did the mix-up properly. And so you were kind of just like, whatever, this character kind of sucks. But then we like over time we fixed those problems. She went from having an average of 2.2k damage on a good starter to an average of 3.2k damage. With the ability to spend meter for an extra 1,000 damage. So, like, her damage went way up, and that changes the playing field, especially for a character with an actual 50-50.
Right.
There's a huge difference, especially Uni with the Vorpal cycle, between 2 mix-ups to kill and 3 mix-ups to kill.
Yes.
Yeah, and so a lot of that I mean, I'm of the opinion that was the biggest thing that fixed Hilda as a character was she could actually kill you. Getting hit by a random normal is a lot more scary if it's like if 1/4 of the games you just lose because you guessed wrong twice on a mix-up.
Yeah.
So like that's a big difference.
No, it's a huge difference. Absolutely.
There's a Twitch clip I like to show about Hilda's damage, especially in ST, because she's one of the few characters who can realistically go for a 2 combo plus throw kill. I can send you the clip.
Sure, I'll throw it up. Absolutely. So one of the things that you brought up, which is like having that 2-touch, 3-touch ability, is something I was bringing up in on stream, is that there is an importance around like the 82 like time, like 80, like around there, where the cycle is about to be up for the first time and basically give somebody Vorpal for the first time. Yep. And one of the things that I noticed when you were playing is that almost every single time you got the hit early on in that first 10 to 15 seconds in transition to you winning Vorpal. Yeah. And it was because a lot of the things of having the ability to go for a 50-50, so shielding's very scary. It has the ability for you to constantly put people into like Oki pressure while the cycle is going or finishing up, so you almost have like a free, like as long as you have grid blocks in your favor, you almost have the guarantee win on the cycle in that situation. And that especially is like super, super good. Like Vorpal, like you were talking in chat when we're doing the overview, super important for that character because it gives her a defensive out that she didn't have before, and the Vorpal trait's super good.
Yeah, Vorpal for Hilda's in kind of a unique place. as good as it is for her, it's even more important to have because it denies your opponent.
Right. Denies them the ability to use the defensive tool to get out of your pressure.
Exactly.
Right.
I think Melody is pretty good at controlling Vorpal too, but in the mirror, it's a very different game compared to every other Hilda matchup.
Mm-hmm. Melody, I was gonna ask you actually. So like a lot of the times I was watching you guys were both sitting in like 2C range and basically playing like a game of chicken almost. So like when you're approaching that sort of, and this will go for any character that can really threaten you once you're sitting in that 2C range, and it's Under Night. There's multiple characters who do that. What are you really thinking about in that moment, like other than just pressing the button at the right time?
To keep it simple,
yeah.
If you are fighting Hilda and you have a long normal, and you are at around Hilda's 2C range, doing nothing is such a safe idea because there is nothing threatening that she can do that you can't stuff unless she has a resource. So what I was looking for, because I know this is something that's really easy to go for, is 623B is the key button that I look for in this matchup. Because I usually lab it pretty often, all the options out of like just 2CC, because the longest hit stun normal. If I see 623B, in theory, I can mash on it pretty consistently. Add a little bit of delay, it may vary, but
sure,
that's my game plan in this matchup.
Right.
I'm always trying to punish 623B.
So you're talking about back spike, right?
Yes, because the back spike is plus, but there's a big enough gap to hit Hilda out of it.
Right.
So if I'm playing most characters in this matchup, I go for that. Because it's just usually the easiest way to play it safe. Because if you're trying to engage in like assault, you're gonna get hit by her many OSs that hit you for doing those things, which leads to a loss.
Right.
So I'd rather play it safe, have a better chance of winning the Vorpal cycle. Because if I'm just sitting down at 2-2, if a 2-2B comes up, I'm already crouching. I can probably react to the pin. And for 6-2-3B, I can just hit that. So that's what I'm going. I'm trying to do nothing. And hope that they do something that's not safe.
Okay, gotcha. Because I know back spike was plus, but it is sort of like a pressure reset that has a little bit of a gap that sort of catches people if they're gonna press a button in the middle. But I also saw like a lot of the times you would just do things like 2CC and just like kind of let it rock there. Is that you trying to like get them to run into stuff like 2-2B?
That was just delay-based netcode eating my.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Sounds understandable. I was just really curious about that.
One of the things I do like is that you don't always have to cancel 2CC because a lot of people are waiting for Hilda to do the next animation.
Right.
So often, interestingly enough, oftentimes you can get away with 2CC and it being what, minus 15 or something.
It's minus
on
like
block.
15.
Yeah, and you can just reset your pressure because people are expecting a follow-up.
Right. That's interesting. And so like there's Under Night is very much designed around the idea of seeable stuff. Like throws are seeable, like most overheads are seeable to a degree.
This is probably the most reactable fighting game to exist.
It's like outside of like stuff like that increases the frame count by a trillion, like Tekken, I would say. Like this is in terms of games that keep frame data to single digits. Yeah, absolutely. Like this is one of those things where it's like overheads are specifically designed to not be a thing that to be a thing that you can block, but it's like a sometimes food that you throw in to catch people off guard sort of thing. Give them another thing to think about. And that's what I mean is that it's really interesting to hear you guys talk about Hilda in that way, because it's like you're not confirming seeing things happen. You're not only confirming seeing things happening, but you're also confirming seeing things not happen. And that's like kind of different.
That's particularly why I wait for the startup of 623B, and I'm not willing to do anything, because until I see that pose, I'm potentially getting trapped.
The downside though is if you mash every time, the answer there is to do 623A because they have the same startup animation, and you're not going to be able to react to the difference. And you'll notice
you can actually fuzzy mash it.
Really? Not if it's a frame trap.
Well, if it's a frame trap, you fuzzy mash when you see the pose, and you'll block the 623A, and then like a few frames after you push it, and you will still punish 623B.
Interesting. Either way, I lost a bunch of rounds to being like, oh, he's not gonna gamble on me frame trapping here, and he gambled on me frame trapping there, and I lost. So it's definitely something you want to consider challenging to make the Hilda player think twice. I definitely did. But even still, 623B is a really good button, even as dangerous as it is. At its best, the smallest gap between a normal and 623B you can get is 13 frames.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, you're going to either get 15 frames though, or something along 20. That's how slow it is in terms of what you can do. You saw me backdash it a couple times on reaction.
Yeah.
If you watch other matchups where the opposing character is like a Linne or an Akatsuki, you're gonna see them jump it a lot on reaction. Because honestly, roll. or roll, but generally speaking, roll is kind of minus for the characters that can roll. Because all of Hilda's specials, the big theme they have is they have really quick recovery. So, for example, 623A is a 34 frame move.
Right.
From start to finish, it's 34 frames. It starts up at 15, and then you recover at 34.
Right.
And 22X is the same way. And to react to 22X, the earliest cue you're going to get is on frame 15 when both the graphic appear and the sound play. And from frame 15 to frame 34, you have 19 frames to react to Hilda whiffing that move. And that's why you probably didn't see us challenge, like you'd see us whiff the ground pillar, and you didn't see either of us challenge it ever.
Right.
Unless it was like a get, like it was like a read. That's because it's so fast, even offline, it's very difficult to react to. And depending on your option, you might even just run into it and get caught, right? If you do like a dash normal, you're gonna get caught even if it whiffs. Even if it was supposed to whiff, so.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So it's like so what I'm hearing is like it's a lot of controlled expectation. Is that like the right word for it? I don't know how to say that very well. Like you're sort of you're controlling. Your attempt is to control what the opponent expects and use it against them.
Exactly. Actually, that's a really good way to do it, because you have answers to pretty much every option they can do.
Right.
But you have to pick the right answer beforehand, not after.
Right.
So, one of the things I like to do when I'm playing a new person is there are two things I like to do. One is called the West Coast test, and the other is the rule of three. I've talked about this before. The West Coast test is you run up to the opponent, you press every single one of your normals into a frame trap. If they get hit before the special, you know they're West Coast. But it's a really good way to check how eager people are to mash by figuring out where in the string they like to mash.
Right.
And it can really help you figure out what you need to do during your pressure to understand your opponent. The reason I call it the West Coast test is because the West Coast people fail it a lot. So, no shade on them. You should be mashing. You should be mashing like
I'm an Akatsuki player. God gave me a good 2A for a reason.
It's true. The other thing I like to do is the rule of three. You do the same thing 3 times, but the last time you do something different. So the typical example of this is you'll see me do 2cc backspike, 2cc backspike, 2cc. Everyone's expecting backspike because we can take advantage of the other player's pattern recognition.
Right.
And you do forward spike to catch the mash. The answer to this is exactly what Melody does and mash every time. It's really good. No, it's really good. I mean, that has its own downsides, but making the Hilda player fear for their actively have to think about the ways to change their play leaves you more room to get in terms of how much the Hilda player has to think versus how much you have to think.
Okay. So Melody, in the terms of like what Angel said, like when somebody is, let's say, like constantly putting pressure on you in terms of like mashing and strings and stuff like that. What's like the backup plan, I have to say, right? Like, what do you go from, like, you see somebody who's not like, you're getting like a random typical like online guy, right? He's just going to mash through everything and try to DP through stuff whenever they get the chance. What's your thought there? Like, so you just play more conservatively, or are you playing to frame trap in a different way?
If I'm playing people like that, they usually don't respect the Vorpal cycle, so I just go out of my way to win that. I use very, very small block strings so that I don't even risk losing the Vorpal cycle. And if I win that, it's a lot easier to kill them because they lose defensive options and I gain a lot of damage. Yep. So it's a very good reward. And if they don't respect it, then they're willing to die on that hill, and that's fine by me.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, very cool. I guess like the last thing I want to talk about is just like the set in general. I want to know like Melody. How did you feel about that? Other than the frame drops and stuff like that, I know.
I personally overall had a bad time, but I actually learned a few things that I didn't know frame data wise that Angel was doing, because I blocked what was it? 2-2-B. And that move is -8, and I was like, okay, it's my turn. 6-2-3-C. I was like, that works. Okay, so I'm going to do that to people.
Yeah. That's actually that I've theoried that for a while, but that's the first time I actually remembered to use it, and it's so good to make people double like
because now the minus frames don't feel minus, because that's like a 4K combo.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage, and you were like, oh, it's my turn, but it wasn't your turn. The mental damages there are pretty hard too. So it's there. Hilda has a lot of ways to do that kind of offense, where she does an action that's really committal, and it beats what you would typically what you would typically expect to win there. For example, right, if you block like forward spike, you see Hilda TK dive kick and beat what you were doing.
Right.
You saw me do that to Melody a couple times, where he'd block forward spike and I'd TK dive kick forward and he'd just get hit for it.
And I kept saying to myself, man, I need to do 5B. I'm in 5B range. And I keep doing 2C. I was like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, I from a, let's say, a neutral perspective, it looked like after about the first like 5 games, Melody was sort of like getting into the rhythm a lot more, and like after that, it felt like it was like a much better competition.
That's because at that point I started mashing instead of trying to time things, and it just happened to work out. But
yeah, I tend to, it's a balance, right? How much you cancel mashing versus how much you try to reset your pressure safely, and sometimes I get thrown off my rhythm, and all it can take is like one wrong move, and I'm like, I don't know how to frame trap someone this round, and I'll just take I basically give up the round for that. You saw that a couple times during the game, especially in the games that Melody 2-0'd me.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get a pressure working. But Melody did a good job of varying his defense and his offense. I think the most interesting interaction in that set actually was it was near the last game, or the second to last game, where we were in a very close war for the win, and I was basically playing the role of the Akatsuki or the Linne, and I was dash blocking at him until I landed a really good hit and took the game.
No, I saw. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of really gutsy forward dash. There was one time where you guys both forward dash blocked on each other, and I was like, whoa, that was crazy. You guys both had the same idea.
Yeah, forward dash blocking forward, as Hilda in a lot of situations, is powerful because people don't expect it.
Of course, yeah.
And 2, you don't actually want to be full screen. Being full screen kind of sucks because none of your normals hit. You want to be in 5B range, not 2C range, 5B range.
Right.
Because if you're at 2C range, there's a possibility that they block 2C and 2CC whiffs, and that's really bad for you because you've given up all initiative. So you actually do want to dash block a lot. And against people who are serial down backers, your pressure is a lot of doing short strings into redashing to push them all the way to the corner. Which is a lot different than how you need to play against someone who dash blocks or someone who's going to be jumping, right?
Right. So then you're thinking about, like, how does this person, like, necessarily approaching? There's characters like, you know, like Enkidu and Akatsuki and Linne who really have to focus on doing stuff like getting into their range before they start threatening things. But then what you're saying is dash into their range when they least expect it and then use block strings to push them back out to optimal ranges.
Yeah. That's definitely one thing that I've tried to integrate into my gameplay over the last year or so. But there are a lot of characters like Aurier, for example, one of Hilda's most troublesome matchups, where you need her in your range or you're going to lose because her options at the full screen are much better than yours.
Right.
Like Divine Thrust pretty much will beat almost every normal in a very, very neutral situation. And she has really good air mobility, so if you commit to something that's not an anti-air, you're going to have a really bad time.
Right.
But you can contrast this to, say, Unt0ldMel0dy, who can do literally nothing at any range but right next to you. So
even for Ori, they gave Hilda a lot of buffs that actually make that matchup a lot better.
They do.
I personally think it's even now instead of being mad bad.
Yeah, it was a lot worse in ST because they took away Hilda's massive damage from ST. She still has great damage now, but she had some truly insane combos. For example, she could get 3.7k meterless off of a 2A starter, which is 600 more damage than most people get, and that was mid-screen. The other side of this is they took away all that damage and they gave her tools like anti-dispersive, which you saw Melody use to great effect. They gave J44, which is an interesting tool. You saw me catch Melody with that one time.
Right.
You have 2-2C is air unblockable and a combo. You didn't really see that in this matchup because neither I nor Melody really want to get airborne anyway.
Yeah.
Screw getting in the air in this matchup.
Understandable.
Yeah, screw that.
Yeah.
The one time Melody did jump, you saw me 3CC him right out of the air. The only time you can jump at Hilda in the mirror is when you're right next to her. And that's the only time you ever saw it work out for either side of us.
Right. I saw at one point you like did jump full charge C and it like hit behind you and like it's one of the weird things that Hilda gets to do.
Yeah, they buffed that actually. ICJC used to not autocorrect at all.
Oh really? Okay.
So
if you drop your combo,
you just drop you get punished. You'd get punished for hitting a normal, which is really a crazy experience to be a part of. But they changed it so that you don't have to be nearly as precise. It doesn't fix all the situations, but it fixes enough of them for it to be noticeable.
Gotcha.
And it's that kind of quality of life stuff that really changed her game plan in clear.
Right. So, like, generally speaking, in fighting games, when characters lose damage or something like that, as long as it doesn't go into, like, an absurd deficit in terms of versus the rest of the cast, like, getting more tools is almost always better. So that makes a lot of sense.
As long as the general game plan isn't affected, Hilda still kills people in 2 to 3 hits.
Right.
So,
as long as...
she literally feels like she doesn't have the 2A starter. Like, okay, that is unfortunate, but with all the other stuff, that's fine.
Yeah, the time to kill in 95% of situations has remained the same, and that's the only important part about the changes is they didn't lower that. Yeah, you lose some really ridiculous starters like TK dive kick doing 5k with 100 meter.
Right.
Or my favorite, the ICJC with low health doing 6k with only 130 meter.
That was pretty.
Yeah, there are a lot of really, really unique combos. They're really hard to execute, though.
Right.
You saw me do one double pin combo that game that was with 2 big pins.
Mm-hmm.
You have to basically set it up so that you don't have enough meter, and you can hold 2 buttons at once. And it's not easy. I was really the only one you ever saw pull it off in a real match in ST.
Yeah.
And that's because it's hard.
That's really specific and weird.
It is. It is. You have to structure your pressure in a way that you can do it on reaction. And if you watch my pressure from a variety of games, I am relatively, you'll see a lot of linear pressure, as in like I cut, like I do the same string.
Right.
I ended it at different points, so it's still varied, right? There's still
Mix-ups
room there.
within it, yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same basic string because I go for the damage. That's how I prep for being able to do maximum damage on every combo.
I was about to ask you that, actually. Yeah, I was about to ask you, is like, so your brain power is being used for what specifically?
So when I'm doing pressure, I have actually got the pressure down to muscle memory at this point.
Right.
So when I get the hit, I instantly know how to convert it into maximum damage that I'm willing to put in the effort for. Because there are certain routes that do a lot of damage, but I don't consider worth the execution effort. But as a consequence, I reduce the variety of what I can do. And I make up for that in having to take a little bit more risks in terms of my pressure with going for mix-ups and that kind of stuff, because I linearize that a little bit. But it's the trade-off that I've decided to make when I play the character.
Yeah.
Melody makes different trade-offs, for example.
Right.
And you can look at other Hildas and they make way different trade-offs. They definitely look for trying to win neutral more by like outthinking their opponent, and I just kind of running my game plan. And it's different. It's a different approach than a lot of Hildas take.
Right.
So, in my opinion, at least.
No, I agree. Like, I think we have like as the United States, I mean, have a pretty decent amount of like good Hilda players, I think, compared to other regions. And
it wasn't that way at the start.
It was not that way at the start. I would say probably like halfway towards the lifespan, halfway through to the end of ST, I felt like we really started seeing the Hilda players flourish. And then, it's hard to say about Claire because of the pandemic. So, it is what it is. But I was going to ask Melody, going on that, like, in terms of, because I think one of the more interesting things about Undernight is the fact that brain power needs to be spent in a certain way. And if you don't know what I mean by that, what I mean is that, like, in this game very specifically, there is a very unique there's a unique mechanic that's called grid that you have to think about, which is like playing a game within a game, but you're only playing one game. It's really weird, and no game has anything like it, but because of that, it affects decision making on two different levels, right? And so
because you have to deal with that tug of war. So
right,
a lot of times it was there would be a point where I think I was winning by like 2 grid blocks or so, and I don't want to do anything because I know Angel's probably going to shield it, so we would just end up sitting there for like 4 seconds and nothing happened. Like, that's what that is. I'm not trying to lose a cycle. An assault, I feel like an assault's a lot more likely to happen.
Right,
to win the cycle or a throw. So like that's the kind of thing you get aware of, like when you play the game long enough. Like the fact that you want to do this because you'll win the good cycle if you do. And sometimes you have to be like, okay, so the other person knows that, so I'm just not going to do that at all.
Yeah, and so what I mean by that is that like there's a certain level of brain power that always needs to be like left to the side for like thinking about grid, and then you have to like think about how the opponent's going to approach and stuff like that. So it's like there's a tremendous amount of thought process that goes into like every single little moment in Undernight. Obviously more notably towards the middle and end of grid cycles. But I was going to think like in terms of that, like where do you feel like we're hearing like where she was spending her like brain power in terms of like what she focused on most? What do you feel like that like differs you from other Hildas in terms of how you spend your thought economy? Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it.
Exactly the term I use.
May I steal that?
Yes, please.
All right, I will steal and credit. Thank you. That's really good. I like that.
I'm certainly not the first, so
okay.
But it's a really good description of what you're talking about.
Yeah, thought economy. Yeah.
Well, since I play a character that has absurd normals that keeps you at a pretty good distance, I have a lot of time to attempt to win the grid cycle while also studying someone's habits when they're that far away. And based on what they do, it actually affects a lot of things that I would do. based on whether or not I have Vorpal or not. If they're going to keep using like the same patterns that I was trying to study in that first like 20 seconds or so to get that one hit that Hilda really needs to legitimately win an entire game.
That's really cool.
That's
So like we're
after.
just hearing the differences between you and Angel in terms of like Angel's like, yeah, pretty simple block strings, but like when you get hit, you're gonna die. As opposed to you, where you're like, I'm gonna like study you while you're trying to approach, and then like gonna make you feel like you have no way to approach because you're constantly like reading habits and punishing them.
Yeah, it's like a Goku Vegeta thing. Honestly, Angel's a lot more freeform with how she goes about it, and I definitely get lost in thought. Like if you ever see me stream, I'm going through it because I actually think way too much when I play this game, and the smallest things just get I let it stick sometimes because I just feel that there's so many things to consider, and it's easy to get worked up with all the possibilities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I mean. Is like I feel like the height of thought economy in this game is tremendous compared to other games. Like in terms of like, I feel like the way that like, let's say for example, Guilty Gear puts in that sort of aspect is like mostly based around the mechanic of tension, right? But at most times there's only 2 or 3 things that could possibly be the situation that happens, right? It could be like flawless defensing or like Roman canceling at that moment when you're like dealing with defensive or offensive pressure, but it's like not in the sense of like I have to think about their pressure, whether they're gonna open me up in these certain ways, and also think about how like the grid mechanic is affecting the gameplay.
Yeah, I'm a big DPYRCer for sure.
Yeah,
understandable.
I think one of the big differences that make it a little bit harder for Melody is that he's been playing not as long as I have. I've been playing pretty intensely for coming up on 3-4 years now. And there are a lot of small things that I've gotten to low amounts of like expenditure because I've been playing so much, right?
Right. There's things that go more towards like the back of your minds because you've seen it more often.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to actually think about the answer. I have the answer. It's in muscle memory or close to muscle memory, right?
Right.
And the higher you get in the abstraction, like, oh, I need to press 2A here versus, oh, I need to punish here versus, like, I press a button here. That increasing level of abstraction means you have more time to think about other things, right? And that's why muscle memory is super important in fighting games, right?
Yep, very much so.
The less you have to think about your execution, the more you can think about other things. And that's how I get a lot of my thought economy back is I have combos down to muscle memory, so I can actually be like, okay, I'm doing my combo. What am I going to do after my combo? And I can go check all of the game state and still do my combo while I know a lot of the newer players are going to be struggling to actually hold all the buttons down and all that.
Right. Yeah, and I think actually that's, if compared to other games, I do feel like Under Night players play sets and like just crack out on games a little bit more than other games just because of that, because I feel like the repetition is actually necessary. You need to experience these things so that when you get them in tournament situations, that they're not new and they're not like shocking your brain when you see them.
Exactly.
All right, cool. We're hitting about the hour mark, but we had a fantastic conversation, so I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I have to. I just want to give you guys thank you. First off, thank you so much for joining me. This was awesome, and I love the conversation afterwards. I honestly do this not only because I have a stream to put on for Aksys, but rather because this is the content I want to see, and you guys made it awesome. So thank you for that. Just Angel.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for accepting. I appreciate it. Just real quick, Angel, let them know where they can find you, and then just like final words.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at AngelOfSol. No spaces, no underscores. I have a Discord, but I prefer to keep that for friends. And final words, I love Uni. I hope that the game continues its trend of becoming bigger. And I'm also working on my own fighting game inspired by both Soku and Uni. So when that comes out, be excited.
Please let me know when that does. That'll be awesome. All right, Melody, you as well.
You can find me on Twitch. It's Unt0ldMel0dy, actually spelled the way that it appears here. And for Twitter, it is Unt0ldMel0dy, but the O's are zeros. I don't recommend following the Twitter if you are too young.
Understandable.
I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Sure.
The Twitch is fine though.
All right, sounds good. That's where you can get some more Hilda action, and it seems like since you're very deep in thought with your game, that you'll be able to explain things for other up-and-coming Hilda players.
Oh yeah, if you want me to angrily explain how the game works, please come up. Look at that a lot.
All right. That's not...
Sorry.
No, go for it.
I honestly think that Melody is the next big Hilda coming up. I have a lot of respect for your play, Melody, and last time we played the mirror, you cooked me. It was like 8-3 your favor or something. So please keep playing because I'm really excited to see where you go.
Oh, don't worry. I intend to keep playing. I want to get the offline set. I need it. There's so many things that like, I'm actually not gonna go on this rant. Positively.
I appreciate it. Anyway, that's awesome. You guys, I love the love. I'll have to say that's great. All right, that's it. I'm gonna kill the stream here. Thank you to Angel and Melody. Thank you everybody in chat. Remember, next Thursday we're gonna have an Otome stream with Ann again. That should be super duper fun. I'm looking forward to that. But that's it for us on Thursday. Thank you guys. I hope you guys have a good weekend coming up, and see you next time.